you went under the wheels.
Affected.
Welcome to Under the Wheels. I'm Matthew.
And I'm Gabe.
And in today's episode, we watched George Miller's newest film, 3,000 Years of Longing. And here's where I insert that really lame joke where I say something like, we've been waiting 3,000 years for the next George Miller movie. Ha ha ha. And then Gabe groans.
Groan.
Let's talk about 3,000 Years of Longing. Gabe, would you like to give a brief summary of the plot?
Okay.
I always give you the difficult job.
Tilda Swinton is a lonely spinster who is a professor of narrative. She's like Carl Jung, but without the mysticism. And she goes on a trip to Turkey for a conference and sees some weird shit and finds a bottle and opens the bottle, and there's Idris Elba inside of it, and he's a genie. And he offers her 3 wishes, and she's like, no, because I've read plenty of stories about wishes and genies, and they're always bad. So then the genie tells her his life story, and eventually she falls in love with him. And that's literally the entire movie.
It is. So, what did you think of 3,000 Years of Longing?
It's pretty good. I would say it's like a high witness.
Yeah, I kind of figured I would have been surprised if you said anything lower, but it would have made for a really interesting episode. I don't know how much we're going to be talking about this movie, but I will start by saying I also thought it was a high witness, low shiny. It's actually, because it's so different than most of the movies I saw, I think for me it's easily, it hopefully will stay in my top 10 of this year, because if you look back at this year, there's some good stuff, but it's also been kind of whatever. But it's one of those movies it's like so different to me that I really like it. Because like, if you want to explain it badly, Tilda Swinton opens a bottle and Idris Elba appears in her hotel room for 2 hours.
Mm-hmm. And they have a nice chat.
They have a philosophical discussion about genies and love. But it's obviously a lot more complicated than that.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely doesn't have your standard 3-act structure. I mean, you could probably, you can make anything seem like it has a 3-act structure, but for our intents and purposes, we're going to say it doesn't.
Okay.
It is just kind of like 2 people in a room having a conversation that kind of goes on these tangents, and those tangents are dramatized. And yeah, it's good. I mean, the performances are all good. It's like it's all cinematically very interesting. I mean, it's pretty fun for the most part. It's got like a good mix of drama and humor, and it has obviously it leans very hard into like the idea of myths and fairy tales, and kind of has a fairy tale vibe to it, especially because it's like it's a movie about stories and their DNA. And like, honestly, one of my biggest complaints about the movie, it isn't even the movie's fault. It's literally David Benioff and D.B. Weiss's fault. Is the whole movie is about stories. Yes, I love shitting on
David Benioff and D.B. Weiss.
Well, let's do some more. It's a movie about stories, and the whole thing that they harp on throughout is like the importance of stories in human civilization, and like how narrative is essentially the structure of consciousness and how we formulate our view of the world, and yada 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 yada. Stories super important. And all of that rhetoric just made me think of the end of Game of Thrones, where Tyrion goes on a 10-minute speech about how stories are the most important thing in the universe. And it's very clearly Benioff, the 2 writers, patting themselves on the back after delivering the worst series finale in television history. They deliver a giant steaming pile of shit that causes the most popular show in the world to lose all its cultural relevancy in one session.
Oh my god.
And then are we're so good. We're so good and important for doing So it's like every time, Tilda Swinton is like, she has this like super heavy Northern England accent too, which also doesn't help because half the cast of Game of Thrones talks like, they're from Manchester.
Yes.
So she's like,
Manchester.
She's like, stories are the most important thing.
I was trying to place her accent, and the best I could say was she's a woman of the North.
Woman of the North.
No, you're. It's funny. You're 100% right.
It's how we create meaning from our world. Like that's how she talks throughout the whole movie, and every time she says that, I'm just thinking of Tyrion Lannister going, we've been through a lot, guys, but let's take a minute to talk about why stories are the most important thing. And what's even more important than stories are the people who write them, specifically the people who wrote this fucking show.
What's funny is that, like, I hadn't been corrupted by, or like I hadn't been dull to how good of an actor Peter Dinklage was at that point when I watched it, because I hadn't been watching the show. Mm-hmm. And so I was like, oh yeah, that's a good point. I was like, like the like a 17-year-old hearing about a controversial opinion for the first time. That blew my mind, and I'm like, you're right. Stories are the way that cultural significance is passed on from one person to another. And like, I still believe that. Like, it's true, but I definitely missed the part where D.B. Weiss and David Benioff were giving each other mutual hand jobs at the same time.
Well, it's just like any story.
It's true. They were, and especially that speech was like them doing their, we're winning all of the awards roundup. This is our congratulatory speech for ourselves.
Well, yeah, it's kind of like any movie that's about the magic of movies in Hollywood. I find sort of gross. For the same reason that I find stories that are about the importance of stories to be kind of gross. Because it's like I'm just watching someone jerk off, Like, yeah, I at least respect Michael Haneke for saying movies are evil. You're evil for watching this, and I'm evil for making it. Right. Like that. Yeah, much like hateful moralizing. I can actually respect.
Yeah. I will. So this is the difference to me about 3,000 Years of Longing. Like, I think I understand what you're saying, but this is a movie it's about stories, but also it's about storytelling.
Well, the other thing, it also does not assign itself any importance.
Right. That's true too. But like, the thing about Game of Thrones, Tyrion's speech is it's all about the story writers and the people who write the stories. But the thing about 3,000 Years of Longing is it's about how the story is told, both how Idris Elba as the Jinn is telling the story, but also how George Miller is using all of the tools at hand. And I know that always comes off as corny, like, oh, he's using all of the film tools. But it's not just the film tools. He's using, oral tradition stories. He's using print stories to help influence. He's using the tools of movie making and stuff.
The 3,000 Years of Longing, the difference between 3,000 Years of Longing and Game of Thrones is Game of Thrones centralizes the importance of stories, especially this story, the one that we're in. 3,000 Years of Longing is about the importance of stories, but it's about the importance of stories generally. Like, no individual story is that important. It's more just like the concept of it.
And again, for me, it's the storytelling as well, because they're two different things. Like, you can tell a shit story, but if your storytelling is good, like Ridley Scott, you can give him a shitty script and he will make it engaging and entertaining 9 times out of 10 because he's a good storyteller. But if you have a bad storyteller telling a great story, like this, there's a reason I don't do the plot summaries, because I'm not a good storyteller when it comes to the oral tradition. So you get a good story and Matt will explain it badly. So that's why, like, I think the emphasis on how it's told, the use of different devices, how they bring in, how they heighten the reality from story to story, I think is also equally important as to why it's enjoyable and not just, Idris Elba pacing around a hotel room saying words, for example.
Yeah, which is how it would be if it was a play.
DB Weiss. Yeah, or a Judd Apatow film. Fuck that guy. Anyway.
It's Samuel Beckett's 3,000 Years of Longing.
Aaron Sorkin's 3000. It's funny because as I was watching it, I was thinking of Molly's Game. So, like, my favorite Idris Elba roles are The Suicide Squad, Pacific Rim, Molly's Game, and this. I'm sure there's like a handful more roles, but like, this
Stack
reminded
up
me a lot of.
Pentecost. That has to be such a good one.
Yeah, Pacific Rim's amazing. He's awesome. He's great. Like, I think that's the other movie that put him on the map for a bunch of people where they're like, oh yeah, Idris Elba, he's cool. He's a good actor. All the people who didn't watch The Wire were like, Pentecost.
I was going to say, as much as Idris Elba tries to like broadcast, no, I'm British, he's always going to be Stringer Bell to me.
Yeah, which is weird because I feel like his American accent is horrible. Like,
and it's also hilarious because like half the people in The Wire are British.
British.
Dominic West and yeah.
And Dominic West also has a horrible English accent. Like, American accent, I should say. Did I say British accent? Idris Elba's British accent. Oh, I'm sorry. Idris Elba's American accent.
You said Dominic West's English accent.
Yeah, Dominic West's American accent is also horrible. But also, Dominic West just seems like kind of a shitty person in general. So, I don't know. Hot take. Dominic West, please don't attack me.
This is, like, based on what? This is just pure conjecture.
I like partly pure conjecture, probably also partly like the roles he takes because he's kind of a shitbag in The Wire. But also there was that whole like thing with like him cheating on his wife with Lily James that came out of nowhere. And it's like, man, if that's true, that's really weird because she was playing his daughter in the thing, and it's just like
I feel like, but it's like I feel like
weird.
Tim Roth is a pretty decent guy, and he always plays just the worst scum in everything he's in.
That's true, but Tim Roth also doesn't necessarily try to disguise like him playing shitty people with him playing like great salt of the earth charming people. He's just he's just Tim Roth.
He's like I want to this character's supposed to be vile. He will now be the most vile character I've played to date.
He's just like, do I get to say the N-word? That's how I get.
That's all he really
any
wants.
roles I get to play.
That's all Tim
Roth
Roth
say the
wants
N-word.
at the end of the day.
I love Tim Roth. That's the thing though, is like there's something like I feel like Dominic West is like so charming that it's like a little bit off-putting how a man can be so charming. Although he was in Downton Abbey, A New Age, playing a secretly gay actor, and he was really good in that. So shout out to Downton Abbey and The New Age, which is perfectly fine.
Well, in any event.
Anyway, so yeah, back to 3000. Yeah, Idris Elba and his terrible American accent. He has I don't know what accent I didn't know what accent anyone was going for. So I'll just call Idris Elba's accent generic Middle Eastern, which is really rude of me.
It's it's like Arab Cockney. I don't know what he was trying to do either, honestly.
Would you be able to replicate it?
No.
Dang
Because
it.
it doesn't make it, like, his accent doesn't make any sense. I was describing this movie to a friend, and because I was saying a lot of it takes place in Turkey, and like I can, just from meeting a lot of Turkish people over the last 5 years or so, I can recognize Turkish by ear. So I was like, oh yeah, they speak actual Turkish, so I can recognize it by ear. And they're saying, does Idris Elba have a Turkish accent? And I'm like, I don't think so. I honestly don't know what accent he has.
Yeah.
I mean,
but his ears
Tilda
are
Swinton,
cool.
I think, is very clearly a North England accent. He's like, my name is Alethea, and my story is true.
I wonder that because she's Irish, right?
I don't know what Tilda Swinton actually is, but
I don't think anyone does. This is where I could have said something really mean and controversial, and I'd regret it for the rest of my life. So I'm not going to say it. I will say this: like we were messaging with Austin, and Austin, were you the one who said that it was like a romance movie disguised as a blockbuster? Like they should have.
Austin was saying
Austin
they should have
saying
marketed it as a romance instead of as a trippy, weird, hallucinogen movie.
The thing is, like Tilda Swinton, great actress. This is oh my god, it's so many conditionalities.
I'm
Tilda
waiting
Swinton,
for this
great
to
actress.
just blow up.
She's massively talented. She deserves all of the awards. She's a great chameleon. She's not my first choice for a romantic lead.
No.
And I think that is probably why they were like, George Miller, he did Mad Max. Let's see if we can get that crowd back in. Knowing that the people who like George Miller, well, I'm such a bandwagoner. I think I like George Miller's movies. I've only seen Mad Max, The Road Warrior, Fury Road, and parts of Witches of Eastwick, but I like his sensibility. So, I mean, obviously I had to see it for the podcast. But
I know. Well, I've seen Mad Max, Mad Max 2, Mad Max Fury Road.
Oh, you mean The Road Warrior?
The Road Warrior, same thing.
Yeah, I got shit thrown at me for calling it Mad Max 2. I noticed someone didn't come in to defend me. Anyway.
It's because I thought it was funny. I've seen Babe, Pig in the City. Seen Happy Feet.
Happy Feet? Okay.
Yeah. The kids' movies, obviously much less interesting, but they're all quite good. But yeah, it's... Tilda Swinton, I agree with you. Interesting choice for a romantic lead, especially because it's like casting Gary Oldman as a romantic lead. It is.
Is that what Darkest Hour was about? I'm Gary Oldman, and it's about a country falling in love with me.
No, that's what Mank was about.
I still really like Mank.
But I wanted to take it back to an earlier point you made.
Yes.
It's about not only stories, but the telling of stories, which I think is true to a degree. Because, there's a very clear delineation in the cinematic language between the contemporary world and then the world that the genie describes when he's telling his life story. And his life story is broken up into chunks, like basically little shorts. And the shorts themselves, if you just take an abstract of what the stories are nothing really to write home about. It's basically standard fairy tale fare with a lot of the details stripped away, so it's super basic, and then there's usually some kind of a twist where the genie is always thwarted at the end from whatever he's trying to achieve. Whatever he's trying to do goes wrong somehow. However, they're the most interesting parts of the movie because they are told with such spectacular style.
I agree completely. I think it's also, that's where a lot of the surprise in the movie comes in. Like the first story when they're talking about, the queen, and she's got like super hairy legs, and it's just such a fucking weird world where I don't know. I'm sorry. I'm thinking back to it, but all of the visual elements where there's a random minotaur.
Yep.
There's the guy that Tilda Swinton saw earlier when she was having a massive headache and passed out. He's there.
Yep.
And actually, that's something I want to ask you about, but I'll ask you about that later.
King Solomon is the Jewish doof warrior.
Yeah. Is the movie anti-Semitic? But he's like a magician, and he tricks. He plays all of these fancy tricks, and it's oh, this is so cool. And the genie is the only one who sees the treachery for what it is. And they have that shot where I think he's whispering what it is that all women desire, and it cuts to a shot, a high angle shot of the camera looking down on Idris Elba, who's floating in the sky, and he's just completely pain stricken because it's the woman that he truly loves, and he's losing her, and it's such a perfect moment.
Well, it's also interesting
and all that is,
it's also an interesting moment where they kind of leave something unsaid, where King Solomon tells Sheba what women truly desire using his infinite wisdom, and she sheds a single tear, either then or shortly after.
Yeah,
which is which makes you question, was he right? Or was it just she feels like she has to marry him. This is something she has to do.
Interesting.
So she's sure, whatever you say, man, you got it. You got the right answer. Yeah, but she doesn't want to marry him. She just feels like she has to.
Interesting. I got the sense that she Yeah, that's a good point. It's like a reversal of the ending of the movie.
Yeah.
But that's interesting. But yeah, I mean, like all of these intimate moments are backed up by like what you would and also it's weird. It's funny because, you know, Mad Max Fury Road, famously, everyone's like, oh, all those practical effects. And then this movie is like nothing but digital effects. And some of them are a little wonky.
Some of them are pretty horrendous.
My wife, while we're watching it, also two things. So
there's some straight up James Bond GoldenEye moments.
You mean Die Another Day, where it's just like Idris Elba composited behind Tilda Swinton from a green screen, and you're like, the lighting doesn't even match the rest of the hotel room. Tilda Swinton, where were they filming this Tilda Swinton? But that's one of the things my wife noticed. I was looking to see if I could see where like the edge was, because I thought like some poor bastard had to like rotoscope Tilda Swinton out of the shot to put Idris Elba behind her. But my wife was also like, why is this thing rated R? And then we have that scene, Solomon and the queen, I forgot what she was, the
Shiva.
Queen of Shiva. They're having sex, and I'm like, that's probably why. And then we got to the second story with all of the like, as he says, all of the giantesses. Mm-hmm. And I was like, that's probably why.
Yep.
Which, like, I was like, oh yeah, just like Mad Max Fury Road. It's like the Milk Mothers all over again. That's so terrible. That's so bad. But you know what? George Miller is tops on finding ways to put in representation. So there you go.
Yeah, they're all getting paid, so.
They're but yeah, that story was good. I actually, like, it's funny, I love the movie. I love the way that it made me feel. I completely forgot what the first half of the second story was.
The first half of the second story is there's a slave who finds the bottle, and she's in love with Prince Murad, son of Suleiman, and she asks for the prince to fall in love with her. Then she wishes to be pregnant, and then kind of like loses it. And Murad is, subject to a bunch of intrigue in the palace, ends up getting killed by his father, and then she's hunted down for having his heir. And she's like too kind of stupid to wish to save her life,
Yeah, that's right. Yep. That was the other interesting thing. That's like a bit of a spoiler about the genie. But
sorry,
I'll
not
save that till
Murad.
later.
Murad was like the crazy prince. I can't remember the son who gets killed.
I actually looked it up. I looked up a summary of it because I was like, because I couldn't remember why in the last story the person wished the unspeakable wish. So I had to I wanted to do a refresher, and that's when I was reminded of like the serving girl who fell in love with the prince, and the genie used his magic to make them fall in love, and then bad things happen because Game of Thrones, obviously.
An entire season of Game of Thrones condensed into
15
10
minutes.
Mustafa.
Yeah.
Mustafa's the son who is assassinated by his dad.
Okay. In another one of those moments where I was like, that's why it's rated R, because you see like his throat that's been like serrated by the bowstring and stuff, and I was like,
Yep.
yeah, that's not passing for PG-13 anytime soon. But like, it's funny because you're right. There's nothing inherently amazing about the stories except for the presentation and the way that they're layered together. And again, I remember when I watched Black Swan, I didn't think any single component of Black Swan was particularly good, but each small component made the movie itself much better than the sum of its parts.
Yeah, I would say this movie's definitely better than the sum of its parts.
Yeah, definitely. Well, yeah, I don't know, because the actual components are still all really meticulously placed and very well done.
All the components?
Okay, until we get
that photograph of the satellite dish, was that well placed?
Oh, I don't even remember. I don't remember that. No, I'm thinking of the end of the movie, which also is related to Game of Thrones. It's funny. This is like a metaphor for Game of Thrones to me. Or like the giant scene where Tilda Swinton is just like naked in the arms of giant Idris Elba.
Yep.
The camera slowly pushes in like a really weird sort of like surreal shot, like a painting.
I know. But
John
yeah, I mean,
Seal,
it's cool like how colorful and strange the worlds that the genie describes are. Like all the sets and props are really extravagant and kind of have these cool and weird features. Like the magic, one-man band instrument.
Yes, I thought that was awesome.
Yeah.
Weird, but awesome.
Also, like the camera,
that's how a lot of it was,
the camera really comes to life in a lot of those scenes where it's like it picks bolder angles, it moves more dynamically as opposed to like in Tilda Swinton's world, it's very just cut and dry. Like here's what's going on, pan left, here's some people, track, put it on a tripod, yada yada yada. It's all very basic. Or like there's a really interesting long take of when Murad and Ibrahim, the guy who's in love with the giantesses, they're young running around the house and they almost stumble upon the genie's bottle that's stuck underneath a stone in the bathhouse. And there's them going back and forth trying to pry it open is just one unbroken take.
Yeah.
Which is like, oh, that's a weird place to have a long take, but it works, It's like all the boldest cinematic choices are all saved for the genie's stories.
That's interesting. I didn't think about that, and it's true. I mean, I would also say like the color palette to me was very vibrant, except like even in the real world, because when Tilda Swinton's at the conference, it's almost like the colors are oversaturated.
Yep.
And then you get into the hotel room, and the hotel room is just so boring. Mm-hmm. And it helps to make boring as in like it's like
everything
if you look at
is
their skin,
all shades of
blue,
like navy blue,
or
gray, and white.
Yeah, but that helps because then it contrasts with when you finally get like one. It contrasts because the the djinn is so colorful in very strange ways. Like his ears are colored. He's got a little tuft of red in his beard, which ends up coming into play later in the movie, like very subtly. But that comes into play, and then his fingers are like made of gold, and his legs are blue and scaly, and so it's there's all of these interesting colors on him. But of course, it's all covered up with this like very boring white bathrobe, and so then it makes everything pop. And again, great use of color, just like Mad Max Fury Road had a great use of oversaturating to the point where it's hyper realistic. The variety of color in the stories and I wasn't paying close enough attention to see if each story had a different color palette, but I'm gonna assume that was the case, that they all had a different color palette and a different level of like color saturation,
kind of,
and brightness. Because like I'm thinking of the last story that all basically takes place inside of like a room, and the colors there were all very brown. It was like browns and tans, and most of the color was being provided by like the bottles and the scar on her face, if I remember correctly. But I remember all of them being kind of like similarly the same sort of color value.
Well, that's the other thing. Like as the genie story moves closer to the present, at least the art direction becomes less stylized.
Yeah. Like to the point where like the last story looks like it takes place, and I'm guessing it takes place in Turkey, but it just reminds me of like the idea of like
the whole thing
colonizers
takes place in Turkey,
imposed.
basically.
Okay. But like that last house looks so like Victorian England, and it just reminds me of like colonizers pushing their own culture on it. Like, oh, this is the way to do it, regardless of if it's better or not.
Ottoman Turkey in the like late 19th century is basically not far off from Victorian England.
Okay. But it also adds to the sense of like the two worlds melding together.
Yeah.
Of like Tilda Swinton's London abode and sort of the genie's fantastical world. It's like that's where it's really starting to come up against each other.
Well, yeah,
That's
it's kind of like
interesting. I didn't know that about Turkey.
well, yeah. I mean,
I don't know much about Turkey.
Turkey's pretty European. I mean, if you look at like modern Turkey today, like Istanbul is not too far off from like any European city.
Have you ever had Turkish coffee? I think we've talked about this before.
Nope.
Okay, yeah. I'm interested if it's any good. I hear it's pretty good.
I don't know. Yeah, I've never bothered to try. I mean, I've had plenty of Turkish tea and kofta in my life.
Okay. I didn't know the
Probably have
second
much more.
thing.
It's like a ground beef patty sort of thing.
Oh, interesting.
It's really good.
Yeah.
It's like imagine like a hamburger on steroids.
Yeah, I was gonna say, is it like could you call it a? I'm not even gonna say it. No,
turkey burger.
No, Gabe, no. Don't say that. It's terrible.
It is.
But yes,
terrible.
that's exactly what I was thinking. You know me too well. Oh, that
I mean, that's
low-hanging
the
fruit.
perfect dad joke for you to make.
Oh,
Dude,
God.
speaking of dad jokes, I saw this. Austin and I saw this at like a matinee,
Yeah.
and there were like 10 people in the theater,
Oh,
tops.
that's better than my show.
And they were all like senior citizens. Like we were the youngest people there by 40 years. And my goodness, I'm like it. Oh man, it was an experience. I'll say that because
Was
like
there
the
a lot of,
trailers.
weird farts.
Well, it's just like, for example, the trailers were a mess because usually trailers are supposed to be similar to what you're about to watch. But the trailers were just a grab bag of like R-rated movies coming out in the next few months. So it's like we had trailers for Pearl, the X prequel, you know,
Okay.
the slasher movie, and it was a Red Band trailer too. There was a trailer for
Interesting.
that like Smile horror movie.
Yeah, where the girl's head falls over at the very end.
Yep.
And even though I know it's coming every single time, it gets me.
Yep.
Yeah.
There was
That's
a
an excellent trailer.
for.
Not necessarily in a good way.
There was a trailer for some like new Judd Apatow LGBT comedy rom-com starring Billy Eichner, and other things that do not fit into any like either of the three that I already mentioned. You know, so it's like no one knew like what the fuck. Like all these old people were like, "What kind of movie is this gonna be?" Like they were showing the trailer for Pearl. And this lady next to me is like, "Is this a horror movie? I thought it was a comedy." It's like, it's not a horror movie. Don't worry.
It's not. Don't listen to these. Don't listen to the previews. It's good. I swear. It's not a horror movie. No, it was the same thing that Aaliyah was asking me because like we saw a trailer for like The Woman King, which is you know what I think we talked about Viola Davis and how awesome she is, and like now she's in like a badass action movie. Cool. But like with like the Smile trailer and I'm trying to think of I think we had a trailer for The Invitation.
Yeah.
My wife was
then,
like, "Is this what kind of movie is?" And I was like, "Yeah, it's."
So like there's a husband and wife on the other side of me, and the husband like kept cracking dad jokes the whole time.
Oh no!
Like not even dad jokes, but just like dad comments. You know, it's like they had the Red Band trailer for Pearl plays, and it's it's a horror, it's a slasher movie, and he's just like, "Won't be seeing that one."
Oh my god!
Loudly so everyone can hear.
Wow, that certainly wasn't a pearl of a movie. Am I right, guys? Like, oh no, please, no open mic night for you, sir. No
Well,
open mic
he
night.
had plenty to say during the giantess sequence.
God. I will say, like, I was laughing my ass off, and also like a little cringy, like when the dude puts his hand out and it's all covered in honey or whatever it was covered in.
Like it's just covered in
so
slime.
gross. Oh my god. But like particularly when the giantess like trips and falls Like, I feel so bad. It was a Michael Haneke moment. I was laughing, and I felt so bad.
You're a bad person for watching
I'm
this
a bad
movie.
person for watching this moment of this really heavy naked lady breaking a stone by tripping and falling on
Well, one of the things. Okay, so you bring up the slime hand. Which,
Yes.
So a lot of bits of this movie are visual cues to like other artworks.
Okay.
So, for example, Murad, the violent mad prince, wants to murder everyone related to him, so he has no competition. His mother convinces him not to kill his brother because his brother is locked in basically a pleasure room with all these large women and has no desire to ever do anything besides just be in there the rest of his life.
Yeah.
So the door to this room has a little sort of gate that you can open. It's a little square. You open it up and you can look inside. So she opens it up and says, like, hey, Murad, take a look. See, your brother's not a threat. And when he looks in, the interior of the room is staged and lit in a way as a reference to a lot of like mid-19th century kind of French and Western European like Orientalist paintings, where it's done in this very similar style of how those paintings were made, of like kind of an imagined fictitious Middle East. So it's like this very clear visual cue, like in the same sense that like a lot of shots in Barry Lyndon are references to paintings of that period.
Yeah.
So one, I think that's really interesting. Like it's a cool way to enrich your story by like, incorporating references to media that was contemporary to that time. Where that makes me question things is the last shot of the movie feels like it's a reference to some kind of modernist painting. Like it looks very like almost Edward Hopper-ish, but because it's bizarre. Like you'll agree with me there, right?
The one where they're with the, I think. Yeah, and I think I know what you're talking about.
Okay, so last shot of the movie.
Yeah. Well, I don't like to go into the last shot would spoil things. So should we just put the spoiler on now?
Yeah, spoiler alert.
Okay, good, because I want to talk about the ending. Okay, because of the use of space.
Well,
in
yeah.
the shot,
So
right?
last shot of the movie
Yeah, go ahead.
is a shot of a park. It's a grassy park with a concrete sidewalk, iron lamppost, and clear blue sky. And Idris Elba and Tilda Swinton walk arm in arm from basically like the middle point of it to the back and kind of off into the horizon. And there's a couple kids playing soccer on the lawn. Everyone looks like they are standing on a green screen. Like the whole thing looks so uncannily fake.
Oh, really? Oh, I didn't get that feeling.
It
Okay.
looked like it to me. It looked like they were walking on a flat painting or something.
Okay.
But in any sense, it's a weird looking shot. Would you agree at least that it looks weird?
No, I didn't have a problem with it.
Oh, well, it looked weird as hell to me. So it's like I'm wondering
No,
if that
yeah.
is a visual reference to something. I don't know.
I don't know. I always like it when you say I don't know. It's always intriguing. It's so, and when you were talking about like drawing paintings for that time period, immediately my mind went to Zack Snyder using comic book pages to influence his staging in movies. But anyway, yeah, I don't know. That would be interesting to see if that's because it's probably like a recurring motif, these ideas of paintings. But again, it goes back to storytelling because you're telling a story through painting. Going back to the thing, I just needed to mention it quickly. they even bring in like the oral storyteller who talks the crazy king off of a ledge and becomes his best buddy and things like that. And so, because you mentioned paintings, that's another type of, like, when you're painting, they're like, oh, the best painters tell a story with their painting. Mm-hmm. So it's just what made me think of that. Yeah, I don't know. That'd be interesting about the ending, to see if that was actually an homage to it or not. I haven't found anything about that.
Yeah,
so.
well, because the movie has like a lot of little Easter eggs like that. Like there's at the very beginning, not at the very beginning, but towards the beginning, like Tilda Swinton's hotel there's an establishing shot of the hotel, and there's a billboard next to it of some business called like, this is like one of the most ham-fisted Easter eggs I've ever seen. Because this movie is heavily inspired by 1001 Arabian Nights.
Yeah.
The main character, the woman who tells all the stories, has various names depending on which version of it is, but one of them is Scheherazade. Mm-hmm. So there's this billboard for some business that's like Scheherazade, burger company, but whatever business it is cut off in the frame, so it is just a billboard that says Scheherazade on it.
Well, she was flying on Scheherazade Airways in the beginning of the movie.
Oh,
so
really? I didn't even notice that. So there you go.
Yeah, I knew that I was not in for subtle references.
Yeah,
that's how I knew I was in it. Since we're talking spoilers, I'm going to shift gears, if you're okay.
Yeah.
With that. So the one question I had throughout most of the movie is kind of like the one question that Tilda Swinton's character had, which was, is this genie trying to use trickery on me to, get my freedom or whatever? Did that occur to you as well? Were you wondering if he was a nefarious trickster the entire time?
Not really, no.
Really? I was constantly questioning. So very early on, you were all in on his story. I thought they were going to pull some unrelated narrator bullshit.
Oh no, I just took him at his word. It's like a fairy tale, and fairy tales, unreliable narrators are a very modernist notion. Mm-hmm. Like that really doesn't become a thing too much until like the late 1800s. Whereas like in classical like myth and folk tales, you take what is said at face value.
That's why I was wondering, because
and it's like in this study of narrative, they're probably not going to pull out like Joyce and Faulkner and be like, let's destroy the concept of narrative, or pull it so far until it breaks.
No, but like it's a trick, right? It's a magic trick, and the djinn is trying to trick the character. So watching it again, I'm interested to see how I feel if I take him completely at his word. I still thought there might have been like a late game twist. Not like, I would say after the hotel sequence, I wasn't that worried. But
yeah,
all the way through the hotel sequence, I was like a little bit worried. Like he's telling his story and he's like, oh yeah, like Solomon cast me to the bottle. And I thought it would be one of those things where like he set up things to happen and his attempts to set them up just constantly got foiled. And he wanted to get rid of his masters no matter what, but the last step to actually getting free, it got foiled by some unforeseen circumstance. And so he was gonna like manipulate her into freeing him, and then bad thing, like trickster things would happen, and it would have some sort of like twist or tragic ending. I'm glad that's not how it went, because that would have been really sad. And I think sort of like the kind of Spielberg-y soapy ending works, kind of. But I also think that after they leave the hotel room to when the movie ends, the movie kind of like loses its way a little bit.
It definitely loses a lot of its momentum.
It's the Game of Thrones season 8 part for me.
Oh, it's not that bad.
It's not that bad. No. Well, and it redeems it at the end. But man, those two old ladies next door.
That scene was bizarre.
But when they leave and go back to London and everything, and she's like going through and she has the bottle open and all that stuff, I was just like, where's this going? And it felt like Return of the King, where there's so many fade outs, like dips to black.
Yeah.
And like it happens over and over, and I'm like, okay, but where are we going movie? Like, what's going on? What's happening? And obviously they need all of this to happen. But man, in the moment, I was starting to get really anxious about like, is this whole movie falling apart in front of my eyes?
That's interesting. The fade outs reminded you of Lord of the Rings. I need to revisit that. All the
Ooh,
fade
I
outs
do
reminded
too.
me of, this is such a stupid reference, but Alexei Balabanov's brother. Because all the scene transitions in that movie are fade outs.
Oh no, that's very old school Hollywood, but also, oh no.
Like, for kind of like a hard-edged Russian gangster movie, it is weird that like every scene ends with a fade out.
Maybe he was worried that like, because yeah, going back to like thinking about Ronin and how in Ronin there aren't any fade outs, there are no transitions, there's no wipes or anything like that. And it's just like we've really come far in society where we don't need fade outs to indicate that time has passed. But also, I wonder if if he was editing the movie, the guy who did Brother, and he's editing the movie and he's like, I'm worried I'm worried the audience isn't going to be able to follow it.
You know,
Maybe I should.
It would be interesting to do like a study of like when did cuts replace fade outs?
My best guess. So like, I mean, they're still being used, right?
Yes, but like not.
But as
very
the
much.
predominant, yeah, like as the predominant method, now we just use an establishing shot to show, hey, we're in a new place. I want to say like the 70s, where people started viewing like those kinds of hard edits as like, oh, look at how raw this movie is. It's so raw, it's still bleeding. That's where I would assume
Still moving on my plate.
there are worms growing out of the final edit of the film. But like I would assume that's where it happened, where a lot more movies started embracing handheld cameras, was like the 70s. And then like in the 80s.
You know what? It could be like a French New Wave sort of thing.
Yeah, or like where the French New Wave would use fade outs in like a way, like in a way where it's not doing scene transitions. You know, because what's his name? John Woo has a fantastic use of wipes. And I remember watching Paycheck, which is not John Woo's best movie by any stretch, but he used wipes in order to convey that time was moving forward in a way that you would normally use like a fade out, but also in a way that it still kept the momentum going. And I always thought that was interesting. So, you know, using fade outs in non-traditional ways is probably what the new wave, I would assume, would do.
You fade out in between cuts on shot reverse shot.
Oh my God.
It sounds like a nightmare. I was thinking the other nightmarish editing you could do is like have a movie that's non-linear that like jumps back and forth in time, where all the scene transitions are wipes, and you can tell if it's going backwards or forwards based on the direction
Based off
of the wipe.
the direction of the wipe. Oh my God, that's something I would totally do though. So the thing about the fade outs in shot reverse shot is like, I think if I'm not mistaken, they have a little bit of something like that in Lord of the Rings. Like they do that in Lord of the Rings. But again, Peter Jackson, as we talked about on the Bad Taste episode, he's a fantastic filmmaker almost instinctually. And like, you know that, okay, if I'm going to be fading out or cross-fading all of these shots together, bring a shot of whiskey and a big blunt, either hold the shots a long time or layer them so that this is the weirdest thing ever. The fading is ending before, or like a new fade is starting midway through when another one is fading.
The thing is I'm talking about fade outs, not crossfades. Fade outs.
Oh!
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Because absolutely, Peter Jackson.
No, you're right. No, that would be a nightmare.
He's crossfaded in shot reverse shot, and it works. He's made it work. I'm talking about fade outs specifically.
Oh my God. That just makes my head hurt. Like actually,
yeah.
I'm actually seeing like it dip to black and oh my God.
Like, doesn't that sound like a fucking nightmare?
That's like first year film students.
Yeah. No, but
like,
you can.
I don't know how to edit.
You can absolutely crossfade shot reverse shot, and it'll work. Because yeah, Lord of the Rings totally does that.
Yeah. But the wipe thing of going back and forward in time, Is that a little too on the nose? Like, you'd have to do something different, right? You'd have to do, like, wipe ups and wipe downs, right?
No, man, just left to right, right to left.
Well, because you want to make it not so obvious, right? Like, so, like, I remember when I was reading Bleach manga, anytime it would be a flashback, the page would be black.
Well, no,
that's a modern time.
That's a convention in all manga.
Oh,
Flashbacks are always black pages.
Black pages. Okay. Okay. So, but yeah, I would think that the left and white, like, it's clever enough, but also like it like rides the line between like, oh, is it too obvious? It's fine. Let's do it anyway. You know what I mean?
I just want someone to be that annoying.
That sounds amazing. I don't know why you're saying annoying. That sounds amazing.
I mean, it's like amazingly annoying.
That's like I'd be like D.B. Weiss and David Benioff. My hand, in an inappropriate place with that editor, and that editor in an inappropriate place with his hand. And yeah, it's that kind of thing. That's what we film guys nerd out over. Is like fake transition shots. Oh my god. But yeah, like going back to 3,000 Years of Longing, and I can only imagine what my wife is thinking about if she can hear me talk now. She's probably like, oh my god, Matt, what is wrong with you? But going back to 3,000 Years of Longing, I didn't realize she used all 3 wishes.
Yeah.
By the end of the movie, I didn't realize she had used all 3 wishes, and I liked that instead of him tricking her, she kind of felt like she tricked him in the movie. I thought that was a fun twist on the normal convention when she's like, I want you to fall in love with me and me fall in love with you like you did with your last master.
It's kind of like it's fun. Within his power to grant that wish, but it also like it changes who he is in the process.
Mm-hmm. And it's like he goes from, and I guess that's the other thing is like all of his stories were about like, yeah, he's a slave, but also how he goes from one type of slavery to another over and over again. And how he finally ends with Tilda Swinton and she realizes like, oh no, I've enslaved him. Like I've done the exact thing that the bottle did.
Mm-hmm.
And to see that enslavement slowly killing him because of what they set up early on with I guess midway through with the electromagnetic waves. I remember one of the people I was with was like, wait, but why didn't the electromagnetic waves affect him in the hotel room? And it's obviously like it was a time release thing. And also I was like, well, maybe London just has a lot more like radio interference and broadcast signals than that room in Turkey did. But,
George Miller's racist about Turkish broadcasting.
Or he's like, oh, that's where all the purity is, just like my home country of Australia, where we don't have good internet or good movie releases. I feel like we have a lot of Australia hate in this podcast.
It's all you, man.
Oh, I'm not the one who was like, yeah, Australian cinema is depressing because Australia is depressing. That was you. That was I meant that as
a compliment.
New Zealand's the fun island. Australia is the one where everyone's depressed all the time because they're having a hard time living.
Well, because New Zealand's the island with no natural predators, and Australia's the island where every animal wants to kill you.
All right, end of tangent. All right, so I didn't realize she had used her second wish to make sure that he could speak.
Yep.
And it was fun watching, like, as he was living there with her, his beard went from red to white, and I was like, oh no, is he losing some of himself? Is he slowly dying? Is being married to Tilda Swinton slowly killing him? It's also like, let's not forget Tilda Swinton was the ancient one where she like believed in nothing but mysticism.
Yep.
And then in this, she's like the exact opposite. She's like, I just believe in the power of storytelling. That's what we call range. That's what we call range.
I mean, if anyone has range, it's Tilda Swinton, considering like, did you see the Suspiria remake?
I did not.
It's wild. Some of the characters that she plays in that movie.
Does she play multiple characters?
Mm-hmm.
Oh wow. Did you like the Suspiria remake?
It's actually really good.
Yeah, that's what I heard. I watched a review from Red Letter Media, and they were talking about like Suspiria, the Argento film, and then the remake by the guy who did Call Me by Your Name.
Luca Guadagnino. Every time I see his name, I hear it in my head in that exact voice.
He's got to be he's probably on the up and coming of like great filmmakers, I would assume, because
I don't know.
Everyone who worked with him on Call Me by Your Name seem to love the experience, and between that and like Suspiria, which apparently is really good. Like I'm interested to see what else he's done.
Well, he and Tilda Swinton are BFFs. Like she's in all of his movies, I think, except Call Me by Your Name.
Oh, interesting. Luca Guadagnino. Oh man, that's quite a hairline. Holy cow. Okay. I mean, as my hairline continues to recede, I notice these things about people. Oh, he has quite a few movies. Oh my god, he did A Bigger Splash. I have not seen it, but I remember when that came out, I was like, this looks awful. Oh my, I have a huge sneeze coming. Okay. He did Beckett. No, he didn't direct it though. Never mind. He's been very prolific in the last couple of years. Especially considering his first movie was in the 90s.
Yeah, his pace really increased over time.
I've just like Terrence Malick. The ultimate my pace increased over time director.
He makes 2 movies in the 70s, takes like 25 years off.
And then he makes a bunch of great movies. Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Diminishing returns. I
was going to say, when they were more spaced out, and then once he made like the whole like wandering around with handheld camera voiceover crop of movies, that quickly devolved. Like
Tree of Life was great, but then after that it's like, all right, man, now it just seems like you're lazy. Like what was after Tree of Life? That was that To the Wonder?
It's To the Wonder, then Night of Cups, then Song to Song.
I didn't see Song to Song, although I wanted to because I heard Val Kilmer's great in it. But I saw Night of Cups, and Night of Cups was a movie. Well, Night of Cups was released.
Night of Cups is a audio-visual piece of media.
Like, it's interesting, but it's also like it's literally just like Christian Bale walking around with a weird smile on his face for like 2 hours, and then like other people kind of like walking around in his vicinity.
Yep.
But it's got like interesting themes, but they don't really coalesce well.
Yep.
Yeah. So that was not. But apparently, did you see his latest movie?
No.
I've got like 18 tabs open. All right, Terrence Malick.
Quiet Life.
Yes. Apparently, it's really good.
That's what I've heard.
Are we ever gonna watch it? Is the question.
Someday. Because I still need to watch The New World.
Ooh, I watched The New World in like 4 sittings.
Jeez.
And I have the extended cut that I want to watch at some point.
I also have the extended cut, but it's always a question: do I watch the extended cut or do I just watch the theatrical version?
Who knows? I'm guessing you have the Criterion version.
Yep.
Like, I almost bought it just because, like, so okay, you know how Disney's making all of these I think I've definitely told you this joke before. Disney's making all of these live action remakes of their animated films. Right?
Yeah.
Terrence Malick beat him to the punch because he made Pocahontas already.
Yeah, he did.
He remade it, so Disney can just buy up the rights and release it, and then people will be like, "This is where are Colors of the Wind? Why is she only 15? What are you doing walking around with a weird smile on your face, Christian Bale? This is not Night of Cups." Christian Bale's in the movie, by the way. But it's such a I'm interested in watching it with my wife because she's a history teacher, and it feels like they went so far in trying to push the historical accuracy in the movie that it would be interesting to see like how that comes out. But yeah, a lot of long shots of
Koryanka culture.
Yes, thank you. Say that one more time.
I think it's something like Koryanka culture or something like that.
That sounds right. But her like running around in like rivers and stuff. So yeah.
I mean, how much of the Thin Red Line is like that one dude's wife spinning in curtains.
Wait, is that? I was thinking of like Elias Codius running around and spinning around with like his rifle and stuff. And
Why is nature so beautiful, yet man is so cruel? The movie.
Elias Cody is just flailing his arms around as the camera's rotating around him in a circle.
Doesn't he like lose his job for being a wimp or something?
Who?
Elias Cody
in Tree of Life. I've never seen The Thin Red Line all the way through. Yeah.
That movie's amazing. As much as I make fun of it.
I know. I got through the first hour. I was like taking like fever-filled notes as I was watching it, and I got through the first hour, and then I was like, all right, my hand's tired because I've been taking notes. But that's where I realized like how effective a good voiceover can be in like escalating the movie. But it's also when he had regular dialogue scenes in his movies too.
Yeah.
Also, like, just quickly on Knight of Cups and To the Wonder, it's interesting because like the point of view is in To the Wonder, it's Ben Affleck, but he's also the only character. Well, Ben Affleck is the main character that the other characters kind of circulate around. Mm-hmm. But it's interesting that he doesn't have a voiceover as sort of like the sun where all the characters are orbiting. Because like technically Olga Kurylenko is probably the main character. But yeah, I actually liked To the Wonder. I liked Knight of Cups, but it just but it did feel lazy. I don't know why. It felt like, I don't know. That's mean to say, isn't it?
I don't know, man. You tell me.
I don't know. Apparently, he gets around a lot of like budget issues by saying that everyone, because he films in Austin, Texas, so he's just like, oh yeah, I need interns, which are basically the PAs, but they don't get paid. So apparently, he gets around a lot of money problems that way, so he can
actors
spend more
fetch your
time
own
editing.
Coffee. That's how we save money on PAs.
Hey, where's the grad student? Hey, grad student, get him coffee. Okay. Also, massage his feet. It's like, oh. So I'm paying the school in order to work. I'm paying to work. Thanks, grad school, film degree.
Grad school is just another source of cheap labor.
Grad students certainly are.
And PhD students.
PhD. Although all the PhD students that I had for my TAs were pretty entertaining. I liked all of them.
Well, it's like how does our system can only survive by finding ways to depress wages and outsource labor to cheaper sources. So it's like, how do we do
students,
that?
Get over here.
Yeah, it's prisoners, third world like sweatshop workers, and then graduate and PhD students. Like those three are the backbone of our economy.
Yeah. It's like, oh, should we hire actual researchers? Hire? No, just bring in the grad students. But the work's not going to be nearly as good. No. But it's government subsidized. And it doesn't cost the college anything. Do it!
Yep.
Okay. What were we talking? Like, why did we start talking about Terrence Malick?
I don't know, man.
I don't know. The world doesn't have any meaning.
We were talking about Luca Guadagnino and how his pace of movies released. I don't know why you brought up Luca Guadagnino. Who
no, I
brought
didn't.
it up.
You brought
I
up
brought him up because of Tilda Swinton. That's right. So back to 3,000 Years of Longing.
Yes.
Tilda Swinton is in it. So that's the connection.
Is she the romantic lead in 3,000 Years of... I could swear that Tilda Swinton played a guy in a movie at least once.
She does it all the time. She plays a guy in Suspiria.
Heck, she almost played a guy in this movie. She's the definition of like... And I think she's embraced like... She's like, yeah, people see me as very androgynous, and I kind of embrace that.
Oh, she's
and
totally
to be fair,
embraced it.
She's gotten a lot of roles through it too. Like...
Yeah,
they're like, hey, we need an androgynous person. Hey, the whatever, the wise one or whatever, the ancient one. Hey, we need someone androgynous. Just get Tilda Swinton. Fucking Doctor Strange. God damn it. My wife was like, do I know her from anywhere? And I'm like,
From everywhere.
Doctor Strange?
Probably.
Dr.
Lion the
Strange,
Witch in the
I guess.
Wardrobe.
Yeah, that's what I told her. I was like, she's the White Queen in Lion the Witch in the Wardrobe. Although I thought the Queen was supposed to be like attractive in that, but not that Tilda Swinton isn't attractive in her own unique way.
Oh, you're terrible, man.
I am. I'm really bad. I think it's been too long since I've talked to you, so it's like it's all coming out today. I'm trying to get those zingers in early. But yeah, I did like the ending of it, even though I think if we broke it down into 3 acts, like the first long act was really good. The second abbreviated act where she goes to the airport and then goes to her home in London was kind of like not good. And then the ending itself, where it's like the big conclusion of it, where she pulls in Aladdin, and this is the better live action Aladdin.
Yeah.
Just like whatever Disney does, if they ever make a live action Pocahontas, the New World will always be better.
Yep.
3,000 Years of Longing will always be the better Aladdin, and the better live action Aladdin. She wishes for his freedom, and he turned out to be a nice guy after all, and
he comes back.
and I think that's like one of my favorite parts, is because she wished for him to love him, and so she never knew if the love was genuine or not.
Well, exactly.
And by him coming back on his own terms, it's like, oh yeah, the love was genuine. Even though I never really got that feeling, like chemistry-wise, from them throughout most of the movie, but it's fine.
I don't know. It worked well enough.
Yeah, it was good. And again, it's like a cute little ending.
Yeah.
It's like a nice little intimate, cute moment in this like epic movie which spans 3,000 years.
It's a nice ending where Idris Elba ping-pongs a soccer ball between like a lamppost, the light bulb, and the base of it.
I loved it.
It was just like, oh, come on.
One more crazy bad VFX shot for the road. Yeah.
Yeah, like one
Why not?
more
Throw it in
awful
there.
visual effect for the road. It's like
With
there's there's Idris Elba when he's doing a tour of England, and it's very clearly him being digitally inserted into photographs.
I loved when all the people were wearing masks because part of it was filmed during the COVID-19 pandemic.
Yeah.
I was like, that's not going to date this movie at all. Thought that was weird.
Well, in 1988's As Tears Go By, directed by Wong Kar-wai, one of the characters at the beginning of the movie has a cold and wears a face mask.
I mean, but don't they still do that in China all the time? Like,
Yeah,
there's
it's
bunch of
a
people
cultural thing more than a temporal thing, but still,
Yeah.
I'm just saying.
You know what? It should be an American cultural thing, because I like the whole I'm not getting sick because I'm wearing a mask. It's making me feel better.
Well, no, the sick person wears the mask.
Can we reverse it? Because there's a lot. I can't impose masks on other people, but I can wear them. Won't it protect me as well?
I guess, but I think
A little bit more than it's better than nothing, but it's still not particularly amazing.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you're sick, you should wear a mask in public because fuck you.
I told you this about.
I'm not sick. I don't have to wear a mask. Don't make me wear one.
Why are you both? I told you this about when I was working at Disney. One of my, one of the guys who was training me, he was like, "Yeah, you're gonna get people who are really sick because, like, you know, families have been planning this trip for 6 months. They've spent tens of thousands of dollars on it, and just because you have the flu, like." Mom and dad aren't going to miss out on their investment just because you have the flu. They can't refund this shit. So you're gonna sack up. You're gonna bring a couple of barf bags, and we're going to Disney World. It doesn't matter how sick you are. And he's like, but think about it. Like, if this is the one big trip that you've planned, and you've already sunk a good couple thousand into it, because like if you're going with kids and stuff, like that easily, you think it like doubles the price, it quadruples the price. We already spent this money. We're going. I'm sorry if you're not going to enjoy meeting Mickey Mouse. I'm sorry if you're going to puke on Mickey Mouse. Like, Mom and Dad, we need this. You're going. We've already spent the money. I always felt bad for kids who were sick at Disney because one kid puked in one of my shows. But like, I also understood it from like a financial
in my
point of
family,
view.
it's always someone gets sick on vacation.
At the end, though, right? Not during.
During, always during.
Oh no, like a couple of days in.
Yep.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense.
Like clockwork, every single time.
Yeah, but like if it was like right when you guys left, I'd be like, wow, your family is cursed. But like a couple of days in, it's usually because someone's not prepared or like, the depressurization of the plane.
I mean, sometimes it is
off.
right when we leave, but
oh god,
it's all like it always happens. Some way, somehow it happens. That's just a fact of life.
How many times has it been you?
A few, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
It's like it's a roulette. We all share in it equally, except my dad, who just can't get sick for some reason. Or at least back then. At least never on vacation. He was never the one.
Okay. I was like, is he the one who's like, it's raining outside. I need to run to build up my immunity. He starts running around outside naked. So he's like, I'll be fine. Gotta strengthen my antibodies.
No, he's just
run around in the dirt, eat food off the floor, that kind of thing.
He's like one of those like Midwestern, boomer people. He's just built.
He's a Midwestern northern folk. We're hardier of the north. Wisconsin winter is coming. It feels like it's 8 years.
Yeah, like I mean, you've seen me. I'm a slim dude. My dad is built like a brick shit house. I mean, he is thick.
That's like a really awesome way of saying he's fat.
Well, not just fat, but like
I know what you mean. He's a hardy, like if you look at his hands, hands look like they could crush someone's skull in it.
Like I am a head taller than he is, but if you put his arm, like his forearm next to mine, it's much wider. His hands are much bigger. Yeah. So I mean that's just how it is. He's got that farm strength.
So I have an uncle. He has like a bunch of land in Minnesota, and like he has like 2 barns on his land. One of them he had contracted out, and then the other one he built from scratch by hand because his father built. Like the father built the house that the father raised his family in from scratch because that's just how it was back then. Mm-hmm. He helped develop that part of Minnesota. And of course, because he built it by hand, the hot water and the cold water were reversed. But, it's like, at least he built it. So, like, I understand what you're saying about, like, the hardy folk from the North Midwest of the United States.
Yeah, who all were like performing manual labor in their childhood, and who all either
came
played
out of the
football
womb and immediately
or wrestled or both.
Yeah. Midwest. It's certainly a place. Apparently, like a lot of newscasters go to Ohio to, even though I know that
you mentioned this
not
before.
Like, yeah. Okay.
To develop an Ohio accent,
which apparently is like like someone from Ohio was like, yeah. Because it's the standard accent. It's like, it's the standard accent. I was like, no, it's not.
So wait,
no, it's not.
All newscasters. So that's why all newscasters sound like LeBron.
And put you to sleep. Let's see. So I guess like the last thing I would say about 3,000 Years of Longing, because I'm running out of things to say about it. Although I was surprised that Tom Holkenborg did the music for it. I didn't realize that Junkie XL did the music for 3,000 Years of Longing. I was kind of surprised. The other thing that I wanted to comment on was like the third story, since we've talked about 2 of the 4. So the third story about like the girl who found the bottle and got the genie. Actually, there's one more thing I want to mention, but she like got the genie and she's like, I want infinite knowledge, and he fell in love with her, and she was gonna wish him free because he became a clingy boyfriend.
Yeah.
Like, I thought that was a real, like, very simply done, but very powerfully done, and I liked that one a lot.
Yeah, it worked really well.
Yeah. Do you find fault in her for, like, the way that she handled things at all?
I mean, her phrasing could be a little more thoughtful.
I never want to... I wish I had never met you or whatever.
Yeah. But I mean,
clingy Idris Elba boyfriend.
I know he becomes a smothering, clingy boyfriend, and she's like,
I want you to be free. No, I just want to be with you all the time. Just let me be with you. I swear, I'll go away if you need me to, but I'll just be in the bottle. I'll be right around the corner.
I mean,
as her husband's like having sex with her.
Well, I know. Well, it's funny. Whenever I think of like People Are Complicated, I always think of The Disaster Artist when like someone asks James Franco's Tommy Wiseau character, it's like, this doesn't make any sense. He's like, people are complicated. He's like, no, this makes literally no sense. He's like, people are complicated. Like, people are complicated. I mean, obviously she likes the genie and values him, but also is basically a prisoner in her own life. And then her one escape starts to turn into a kind of confinement.
Yeah. And obsession, too. It's like, it's interesting how, like, we think that these things that are going to free us become obsessive and constricting. It's also funny. It's, like, interesting that she never just asked for freedom, either. Like, I want to be... I don't know.
Well, aren't the rules you can't, like, wish... Does he say you can't wish someone dead?
Yeah, but she doesn't have to wish him dead. She could be like, I wish that he could no longer... I wish I had a different husband. I don't know what you do there.
I don't know. Well, it's also one of those things where it's like her obsession is with knowledge.
Yeah.
So it's like... And also, I'm kind of glad it didn't turn into some sort of Lovecraftian horror thing where it's like she eats too much knowledge and then turns into like an eldritch creature.
That would have been funny, and all of a sudden Idris Elba has to get in the old Jaeger and start fighting her as Pentecost. Like, I would pay money for that fanfic, but yeah, I wouldn't have wanted to see that in the movie.
It's not like Bloodborne where your like, you know, forbidden knowledge stat gets too high and then you contract madness.
Call of the Cthulhu. Actually, I'll be honest. I would love to see Idris Elba in like a dark fantasy. I think that'd be awesome.
You mean like Dark Tower?
A good dark fantasy where he has like a big ass sword and he's just like cleaving like demons in half and stuff. Did you see Dark Tower?
No.
Matthew McConaughey is the
No one
bad
saw
guy.
Dark Tower.
God, I kind of want to see it though. I should watch it. I don't have time to watch it, but I should watch it. See if it really is that bad.
My uncle on my mom's side has pretty mixed opinions of Stephen King. Like, he's read several of Stephen King's books, and he says they're all over the place.
This is the guy who hates Game of Thrones, the books, though, right?
Yeah, this is the guy who's like, George R. R. Martin has no style to speak of.
Okay. Storm of Swords is my brother's favorite book. Like one of his favorite books of all time. Yeah, but anyway.
He wasn't saying that George R. R. Martin is like bad at plotting or character. It's just like reading the words is boring.
Yeah.
Reading
the things that I'm staring at. I'm not reminded of a story. I'm reminded that they're words.
Well, so yeah, I mean, he was like,
anyway,
I was asking what he thought of Stephen King, and he's like, well, you know, like he said, like Christine is pretty good. I think he said of the books he read, Christine was his favorite, which is the one about the haunted car. And like he read some of the other famous ones. He said they were all right, but he's like, Dark Tower is fucking awful. Like it's so bad.
Well, that's like the Stephen King Circle Jerk book because he brings in all of his other books into Dark Tower.
That's Stephen King's magnum opus that no one wants to read because it doesn't sound like a good read by any means.
I hear it's pretty good until the ending, but he puts a disclaimer there. He's like, if you don't want to know how it ends, don't read past this point. And apparently it ends like just the way it started, and that's why people are mad. Of course, it's a cycle
because cycles.
Storytelling. It's like a circle. It's like a circle.
It's like a circle.
It's circular. You know, Joseph Campbell. They're circular. Mike Waiter. Just in case anyone was wondering who we were referencing there. 3,000 Years of Longing. Go see it. It's funny because like up until the last act, I was kind of like vibing it, and I was like, you know what, this might be my favorite movie this year so far. But then it
really peters out.
Yeah.
Like the very ending does kind of redeem it all, But there's the whole interlude. The whole interlude in London is pretty drab compared to the rest of the movie.
I will say, I think that's the one, like, that's the rewatch moment. Like, when you watch it the first time, you're like, all right, where is this going? Why is it going there? And then when you rewatch it, you're like, okay, I know how it ends, so I understand why they have to take their time developing this moment here. So that's...
The rewatch moment is... So does the genie always have to fulfill 3 wishes, or does he only have to fulfill 3 wishes after Solomon puts him in the bottle? And what is it? Is there something about the bottle or Solomon that makes him have to fulfill 3 wishes to go home? Could he have gone home at any time before the bottle?
Ding, 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 ding. If he's all powerful, why is he good? He can't be all powerful and all good. Ding! Philosophy 101, guys.
He's not all powerful.
He's not all powerful. The last thing I'll say about the movie is, so we're watching the movie and Tilda Swinton starts using her electric toothbrush to clean the bottle. Mm-hmm. And my wife just turns to me, she's like, she's not going to use the toothbrush though, right? She's going to throw that head away. I'm like, I'm sure she is. And then later on in the movie, she's using the same toothbrush head to clean her teeth. Nice. And we all kind of were like, it's so gross. Great movie. Watch it for the toothbrush head.
Yeah, I was going to say, other than Nope, this is probably the best movie you can find in theaters right now.
Yeah.
So go see it.
Yeah, go see it. And then you can talk to us about it, Gabe. If they wanted to talk, why do we do this? Do we even need to do this? Do you think?
Yeah, let's do it. If you want to talk about the genie wish magic system, the lore and logic of 3,000 Years of Longing,
Brandon Sanderson, we're talking to you. Come on the podcast.
You can reach us at video@underthewheels.com. You can also comment, like, all that shit. Leave a review on Apple Podcasts, YouTube, and Stitcher.
Yes, sir. Go to the movies. Help support this movie. It's currently tanking at the box office, but it's definitely worth watching.
Yeah, we need... This movie deserves to make its budget back.
Definitely. But, before we know it, it'll be on... I don't know what streaming service it's going to be on. Roku box, Roku Live. George Miller
TV.
Peacock acquires the rights.
Is The Northman on Peacock yet?
Oh my God, I don't know. If it is, I know what I'm doing tonight. I've got a date with Alexander Skarsgård. Is that how you say it?
Yeah.
Skarsgård. But George Miller, keep making movies, please. You don't make enough of them, and it's always fun when they come out. Don't wait 10 years to release your next movie.
Yeah, and it's not like you've got all the time in the world either.
Yeah. Probably takes him like 3,000 years to edit his movies. All right, that's my last bad joke. I'm Matthew.
I'm Gabe.
And you've just been under the wheels.
The New World Order is going to be testing cricket burgers on the kids first.
It's so funny because they, in Snowpiercer, they have that scene where they're like, "This is the gross protein bars you've been eating. They're maggots," and I'm like, you know what? As long as it doesn't taste too bad, I'm sure it's fine. It's a good way to keep the populace fed, I'm like, isn't that what Hostess cupcakes are made out of? It's like pig fat or something. Like the filling in, what's it called?
Dude, pig fat's way too expensive for Hostess cupcakes. that's luxury shit right there. No, Hostess cupcakes.
You're gonna go in 4 different directions there.
No, it's me stammering because I can't speak anymore. The Hostess cupcakes, no, the fat content of those is entirely they squeezed a bunch of oil out of various plants in a garbage disposal, and then in a lab added hydrogen atoms to them to make them like chunky.
I'm pretty sure because it's animal shortening, right? So instead, I think it's just like, the runoff from like McDonald's burgers. They're like, those are quote animals, unquote. We'll use
Again,
that.
I think animal shortening is still too pricey. Because here's the thing, right? It is actually cheaper to take like garbage palm oil or whatever
At this point, that's true.
and hydrogenate it in a laboratory
That's true.
than it is to just use butter or milk.
Wait, it's cheaper to use the chemical, or it's cheaper to use milk?
It's cheaper to use the chemical.
Yeah. I agree with that.
Like palm oil is so much cheaper. Whatever additional expense it takes to use, evil science and turn it from a liquid into a solid, from an
Modern-day
unsaturated
alchemy.
Well, they turn it from an unsaturated fat that's a liquid into a saturated fat that's a
Right.
solid. And yeah, that whole chemical process is somehow cheaper than just like, here's milk from a cow.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like, yeah, because theoretically, if you have a cow, you have to like milk it multiple times to get a certain amount of cream. Whereas if you use just like the runoff of oil from like French fries in all of the fast food places and put it in a big vat and just like chemicalize it there.
You
where
just
it's, like,
skim
a
the
vat-
oil off the top of sewage like they do in China.
Put it in shortening, feed it to the masses. Hey, if you put enough sugar in anything, people will eat it. That's the moral of the story. So when they start doing the Snowpiercer, like Hostess cubes, then they'll just use sugar. They'll fill it with sugar, and people will be like, I mean, it's gross, but it's not that gross.
I mean, we're going to be reaching a point if we don't like address basically everything about how we live where we'll just turn into China, where the elites will like go to a nice steakhouse, but they'll bring their own meat and cooking oil, because whatever the steakhouse has is like, it's going to be like horse meat that's rancid, and then they'll be cooking it in oil skimmed off of industrial waste.
It's like, wow, you guys have been open for years. How do you do it? We don't buy meat. That's how we do it. Bring your own meat.
They do that though. Like, it's like food security in China is so bad.
Yeah. I was thinking like that is a way, like as a restaurant, you could save a ton of money by not having to supply your own food. But, in the US, there are such strict regulations. And to be fair, it'd be weird to like buy a steak from Costco to go over to like a Ruth Chris steakhouse and have them make it. Like,
oh yeah, in the
at
US,
the end of the day,
in the US you're
it's still
paying
freaking,
for the ingredients more so than the service or cooking ability in those kind of scenarios.
Finished.